Welcome to today's episode of Ask the Guitar Coach. Here's our question for the day. When you start coaching with a new student, what are the first things that you do? That's actually a really good question, and the answer is very simple. First, we examine the technical aspects of his playing and we start focusing on developing or actually fine-tuning and optimizing his technique. The reason for that is that a large amount, probably 50% or more of the students, have what I call day one mistakes, meaning things that keep them back from developing their playing because they were done in a non-optimum way from the day one when they first picked up their guitar. Apart from that, technique has to do with the way your body moves and the way your finger moves. As such, it has the limitations of the body. Let me give you a very good example. If you want to learn something about, let's say, music theory, for example, you have an A minor 7 chord and you want to find out what scale is going to sound good over that, and you don't have this information. And you ask your coach, and your coach will tell you over A minor 7 or A minor 9 chord, probably the best scale to use would be a Dorian scale. Now, this is a new piece of information, and as long as your memory works well, you will remember it now, you learned it. Ah, cool, next time I have an A minor 7 chord, I'll just use a Dorian scale. However, if you do not know the shapes of the A Dorian scale, now you have a new challenge. You have to learn the actual shapes. So fingerboard knowledge is the next step, and you would have to learn the actual shapes of the scale before you're able to use it. Once you learn the shapes, then you also have to have the technique to play the scale. When we take these three aspects, these three elements into account, we see that theory is the easiest to understand, or at least to assimilate new information. Then the next thing would be fingerboard knowledge, where you really have to memorize just the shapes, and then the hardest is going to be technique. Why? Because as I said earlier on, it has the limitations of the body. You have to practice the actual movement and get it down right. So this practicing of the movement is what takes the most time, which means that building technique in anything on the guitar will take the most time than anything else. So exactly because it takes the most time, we have to start earlier for that, so that eventually it will catch up to your theory knowledge and your fingerboard knowledge. Let's see now an example to give you an idea of what kind of scales we're talking about. Not guitar scales, but the magnitude of scale. So if it will take you one day to learn some theoretical knowledge, for example, which scales to use over the A minor 9 chords, or which scale to use over the C major 13 sharp 11 chord, which would be the C Lydian scale. This idea that you use the A Dorian scale or the C Lydian scale, you can memorize it, you can learn it in one day. You can try it over and over again, test yourself, one day is enough. Now, to learn the actual shapes of the scale, it will take you 1 week. So fingerboard knowledge will take you 1 week, sometimes even more, depending on how much time you practice per day. However, getting your technique down, if you're starting as a beginner, before you're able to play these scales confidently up and down the neck with proper normal technique, can take you as much as 1 year. So keep this thing in mind. 1 day to learn the theory, 1 week to learn the relevant fingerboard knowledge, and then 1 year to have the technique ready. So this is what I do with a new coaching student. I will always check out his technique and start working on technical things right away so that he can develop them, because these are going to take the longest time to develop. Once these things are starting to develop and we have a system where he's getting better, we'll start working on the rest of the things like fingerboard knowledge, theory, licks, musical vocabulary, and all the other kinds of stuff. So this is the system that I use, and that's the system that I suggest that you would use as well. Start with technique, because if you don't have the proper technique, no matter what you want to play, even if you can understand what it's supposed to sound like, you're just not going to be able to play it. So that's all about this specific subject. I hope it was helpful. Keep those questions coming. I'm having a lot of fun answering all of them. And I'll see you on the next episode of Ask the Guitar Coach.